Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. Bicycle Retail Radio brings together retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders for honest discussions about the latest issues facing bicycle retailers. The podcast dives deep into the challenges and triumphs of the bicycle industry, providing an in-depth look at the person behind the profession. Aiming to deliver content that's both relatable and thought-provoking, offering real-world tips and insights to help you find success in the bicycle industry. There's a human side of the business, and the podcast aims to share stories, experiences, and strategies that you can apply in your own shop. Whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or a sense of community, you've come to the right place. The National Bicycle Dealer Association has a rich history of supporting retailers across the nation. Founded in 1946 with a mission to strengthen specialty bicycle retailers through education, through research, through communication, and through advocacy. The National Bicycle Dealer Association is proudly supported by our members and our membership. If you'd like to learn more about the benefits of joining, please visit nbda.com.
If you're a bicycle retailer looking to take your business to the next level, listen up. NBDA and CABDA have joined forces for the Drive to Thrive, a revolutionary education experience coming to Chicago in February and Las Vegas in March. Get hands-on training in service, sales, and fitting. Master operational excellence. Connect with fellow retailers in our new Masterclass peer sessions. Learn from industry-leading keynote speakers. This isn't just professional development, it's a movement toward a stronger retail future. So visit nbda.com to register.
Want a better shipping solution? Ship the best way with Bike Flights. You'll save time and money, whether you're selling online, processing a warranty return, or helping a customer ride a bucket list event. If you're an NBDA retailer, email partners at bikeflights.com today, and we'll get your shop set up in minutes. Bike Flights. We ship. You ride.
Hi, listeners. Welcome back to Bicycle Retail Radio. Thrilled you're here. I absolutely love today's guest conversation. I have Charlie Thomas, bike racer, mechanic, lawyer, and owner of Bayou Bicycles in New Orleans on. Charlie and I talk about his unique legal background with bike law and his approach to running a bike shop, advocating for cycling safety, and fostering this beautiful, vibrant cycling community that he has. I hope you like the discussion. We talk about liability, product safety, expanding business models, and more. It's all jam-packed. Enjoy. Charlie, welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, Heather, thanks for having me.
I am so thrilled. I'm looking at you right now, your background. I've been in your store. I absolutely love your store. And you have such a unique background. So thanks for making the time. I know you're a super busy human.
Oh my gosh, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, you have, I thought we would just start by giving our listeners a little bit about you. I don't even know how to introduce you. You've worn so many caps in the cycling world, should I say. You've been a racer, a mechanic, a lawyer, and now a bike shop owner. How do you even introduce yourself when someone says, what do you do? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I do wear a few hats. I would say this, I'm a lawyer first in my role today and a huge bike advocate and also a pedestrian advocate. But I started riding bikes, obviously, as a little kid and started racing when I was 13. So racing through high school and collegiately, and then after for a bit before going to law school and really having to focus on my studies, I've carried that with me the entire time. So at this point, because of the law practice and what we do for so much advocacy for cycling, that's the priority. But at the same time, oh my gosh, I've had the shop now for a year and it's been so much fun, mainly because I have a great team of people who are, carrying out the day to day. But no, there's a few hats I wear. I wish I could say I was a racer still, but just, in my old age now, I'm not as fast as I used to be. So I've had to just enjoy spirited riding at this point.
I get that. But man, yeah, your shop, it does mix that background of racing with the advocacy. Just from your product mix, the displays on the wall, you really do have a great solution for all the diversity and ridership. But racing, I do want to ask you, let's just for a moment 7 state championships, leading the Texas A&M cycling team, racing as a pro one, two. I mean, come on. Like, is there something that you like a memory that always comes to you that you're just like, yeah, that was cool.
I'm sure somebody pulled these 7 state championships off my bio somewhere, and somebody was kind enough to write that about me. I'm going to, full disclosure, say that in most of those races, I'm sure I beat at least one or two other people as a junior in Louisiana. But at the same time, I loved it so much, and I did go race collegiately at Texas A&M all 4 years. I was the president of our team my senior year, which we had like, I would say close to 100 racers. It's a school of close to 50,000 people at that time. And so we didn't have a whole lot else to do in College Station, Texas. It was kind of a cow town, a very ag focused school. So we could just go train and race all the time without a whole lot of distractions. It's not like we were living in Austin or Chicago or New York. So I will say, to answer your question, is there a memory that really hits me?
Sure.
I would say in the early 2000s, I remember doing a race in the Texas Hill Country, not for collegiately, but for our private team out of Houston. And Lance Armstrong shows up last minute. The guy on the loudspeaker's like, "We're going to go as soon as we've got our last minute entrant." And here he is, and a black Suburban pulls up, and Lance hops out with his bike. And he's the current Tour de France champion. This is a spring race, so he's just using it as a warm up before he goes to France that year for the tour. And I remember just riding in the back. Yeah, I'm probably 19, 20, and I'm in the back next to Lance. The group's strung out, 100 something riders. And it's one of those things, Heather, you've raced.
Yeah.
Like going uphill, if you're in the draft, you can be in your 5312 biggest gear, and you're going up at like 30 something miles an hour, but it feels like you're going 18.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I just remember looking over at Lance and looking at his physique. And this is not a commentary on anything beyond this race, but looking at him kind of like, oh man, like I'm real fast right now. But if you're going to genetically engineer the person
Yeah.
this earth who's going to be the fastest at riding a bike, it's going to look like him. He's just, smaller torso, these giant hips, these giant quads going down to his big calves, and then like these tiny little ankles. And so he at one point went into the wind, passed the entire group, won a preem, and then came back in and like picked up the conversation where he left off. And I just remember thinking, had I tried to do that, it was a closed course, so you could take up the whole road. Had I tried to do that, I probably would have made it like maybe to the front of the group and then just gotten blown up. So at that point, I decided I'm not going to try and go live in a van and like race in Belgium as a struggling American pro.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do something else. And that's when I started considering going to law school. So that was a pivotal moment when
That was
my dreams were crushed, but also another door opened.
That's awesome, Charlie. I love that. I'm glad I asked you that question. I love that. All right, so for the past year, Bayou Bicycles, you are now the owner of Bayou Bicycles. It's an absolutely fantastic shop with a great team and a great culture. But you have a history at Bayou Bicycles. You've actually worked in the shop, wrenching on bikes. You learned the business. Did you ever think that one day you were going to own this business?
Um, that's a really, really great question. There's always that hope, but there was also that'll never sort of happen, pie in the sky, dream one day. And I was the 13-year-old showing up to the shop that I'm sure many shops have that kid where they just kind of keep showing up every day. And then at some point they're hanging out in the back. And then at some point they're learning how to change a tube or clean a drivetrain. And then at some point, if it's not illegal because the person's too young, it's like maybe we should give them a job and pay them.
Thanks so much.
And Heather, I can't get away from those formative, I'll still say childhood memories of walking into the shop, into Bayou Bicycles, my shop now. And you smell the tire rubber, you smell the lubricants, you smell the cardboard. There's just that shop smell that during that time of my life, like it'll never leave me. So walking into any shop that has that smell now, it's just, I don't know, it takes me right back to my 13-year-old self days when the world was so exciting and I couldn't drive, but I could get anywhere on my bicycle. And so once I started working there, really like after school on weekdays or on Saturdays, I was able to do so many things that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But it was just transformational for me as a preteen to a teen and developing skills and learning how to work hard and interact with people. So, no, it's an incredibly special place to me. And at that time, I mean, I was just honored to be in the environment and that the people there would allow me to be. So coming full circle to own it one day was a bit of a stretch, but like, how do you not dream that one day you could be a shop owner? I mean, if you're into bikes, who wouldn't want to be a shop owner? There's just obviously different paths that might lead you there. So that might answer your question, but yeah, it was like, to the extent I can tell you very honestly, yes, I would have wanted this and thought it could have happened. Yeah, it would have been just like an absolute dream one day, and I can't believe that it kind of did happen.
Yeah, and you can tell that you absolutely love being a shop owner, but you pour your heart and soul into that shop. And listeners, we're going to link to the shop website in the show notes, and we're also going to link to Bike Law in the show notes because Charlie is a lawyer practicing at Bike Law. So I want to, Charlie, just talk about your journey into law. I think it's fascinating. We did do a little research on you, and we found out that there was an early bike case that was actually at Walmart that helped launch your legal career. I don't know if you can tell us about the case and how it shaped your journey into bike law. Can you share anything there?
That was a crazy case. So Heather, just where I was in life, I was finishing up at Texas A&M and heading to law school. So this was the summer after I graduated from college and before I was going to law school, and I was working at the bike shop. And I knew some attorneys in town. This is in New Orleans. One of them reached out to me and said, Charlie, we have a bicycle case. This bicycle was built properly, or there's something wrong with it. We don't really know what. And it really hurt this 9-year-old boy. And we'd like you to come look at it because we don't know really what we're looking at or what's wrong with this bike. So I remember going to this law firm in my cargo shorts and my greasy shirt from the shop after work that day and looking. It was a Walmart Pacific bike. This is 2005, let's say, so 20 years ago from when we're recording this now. And I'm looking at this thing and it's built entirely wrong. The forks backwards, the cables are way too long in some areas and way too short in others. And it was a mess. And for anybody who's worked in a shop who has had, as we had at that point, so many people say, I just bought this bike from a big box retailer and it doesn't seem like it's put together right, pedals falling off or whatever it is. Can y'all help us with this? And we're just looking at it saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe they allowed a bike to leave in that condition. And we're glad you're here, even though it's not the most ideal bike we want to work on, but at least we'll get it going safe. And growing up in the bike shop, we learned bikes are vehicles. So you might have a child riding a bike, the brakes need to engage, the handlebars should not slip or fall off. Somebody could get really hurt. So there's a liability concern, but also just your responsibility as being an independent bike shop with you're putting these vehicles out there. So it was frustrating to see that some of the big box retailers did not take that same sort of care. And they probably didn't have the same training for the guy who's putting together a swing set and then a rocking chair and then slapping together the bicycle and nobody's checking it. So what happened with the case was this 9-year-old boy was riding down a levee. For anybody who doesn't know what a levee is, we've got them all the way down in southern Louisiana, and they try and control the river from flooding. So what would a 9-year-old boy want to do with a dual suspension bike the second day he had it, but take it up to the top of the levee and see how fast you can go down it? So he's going down the levee and he starts to grab the brakes, hand brakes. There's maybe 5% of the brake pad in contact with the rim. So there's just not much there. So he's not slowing down. He goes all the way down to the bottom of the hill, runs into a tree that stops him. The bike stops in front of the tree, but he flies forward and he has this just awful injury where I'll say it, his penis was cut off by a cable on the top tube. So we've got this, just terrible injury, and this 9-year-old who's trying to come out of it with his mom, who had bought him the bike, and now she feels awful. And the law firm had written a letter to Walmart saying, look what happened here. Are y'all going to take some accountability or responsibility and try and make this right? And at that time, Walmart basically said, not at all. We build all of our bikes properly and safely. So if you want to do something about it, you're going to have to file suit and come at us. So the law firm needed somebody to walk them through maybe what's wrong with the bike. And for the next year, I interned, clerked with that law firm and went around on that case. We went to depositions across the country of different experts. We went to Walmart and probably bought 25 to 30 bikes from the store that sold this one as impeachment evidence so that if it went to trial, which it did, we could roll these bikes through as the corporate representative is saying, oh no, we teach our people how to build bikes safely. And we can say, well, what about this one? What about that one? That doesn't even have a seat, you know? So we ended up going to trial. We won. And it was so fulfilling, Heather, to see that, wait a second, I thought I was leaving my biking world with racing and working in a shop, and now I'm gonna have to go be, some dull lawyer. And now that my eyes were kind of opening to, hold on, can I be an advocate? Can we somehow join practice of law and bike advocacy? And so on that case, I met my current law partner, who's about 10 years older than me. He was a prosecutor. He tried, 180 jury trials. So he was way upstream from me when I was starting. But I basically got attached with him. His name's Stephen Huber, and our firm is Huber Thomas. So that was 20 years ago, and I haven't let go of him. So I've just hung on to him the entire time, and we have our own firm now, and we're licensed in many states. But my practice is solely focused on bike advocacy, bike crashes, responsibility, and to some extent pedestrian because there's a lot of crossover. So
That's
that may
really
be a longer answer than you wanted, but that's the answer.
no, it's really interesting, and that's an example of how your background experience as a mechanic gave you this unique edge, and helps you understand product failures, defects, things that are assembled correctly. And I'm sure there's been more than one case that your mechanical knowledge has really helped you.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of it too is, look, we're very pro industry, so we're not looking to, make a products case against a big name in the industry. It's just, I'm part of the industry, and we want to take care of our own. And for the most part, I'll see people misuse a product, or maybe there's not truly culpability there on the part of a manufacturer. But where the knowledge of bike mechanics does really help is, I mean, if you go into any sort of law firm and you're talking with an attorney and you have a bike and you say, point me to the stem, point me to the crankset, point me to the disc rotor caliper or derailleur, you're probably not going to get accurate responses. So if we're going to be telling a jury at some point, hey, here's how it feels to be passed by an 18 wheeler at a foot, or here's how it feels if you are going through a turn and leaning over, or you're braking really hard, which you can't really also swerve and brake. You're either swerving or braking, but not both. And just like, riding dynamics, the components on a bike, what you can do, what you can't do, and then confidently projecting that to a witness or a jury versus somebody who doesn't really know what's in a bike. So
Mhm.
it's helped kind of across the board with both like how the bike works and also riding.
Yeah, I'm sure. So 2024, you're busy. Like you've got a law firm, you've got a family, a beautiful family, and the opportunity comes up to purchase Bayou Bicycles from its founder. What made you say, yes, I'm doing this? Like, what was it?
Probably that I said no like 3 times.
You were like, all right, fine, I'm doing it.
All right, so I'm Charlie. The gentleman who started the bike shop in the 80s is also Charlie, no relation. So other Charlie, he was my first boss, Heather, is again, like the young teenager showing up at his shop. And we've stayed friends over the years. I've been the shop attorney for years, just on whatever sort of issues they encounter. And then I, transferred into from being a young guy to the old guy that brings pizza and beer on a Saturday. And I've just always been inner circle. So 2024, Charlie takes me to lunch, sits me down and says, I want to retire. And
Hmm.
travel the country and see it. And I said, that's awesome, man. Like, you're close to 70. You totally should do that. Go for it. And he goes, and I want you to buy the shop. And I said, oh, whoa, that's a big part too. So yeah, like Heather, we're busy. Our law practice is busy. I have three children who are wonderful, but also, I want to be there for them and go to practices and just not be some absentee dad. And I have a very understanding spouse. So through some chats like that and talking with Charlie, he was kind of like, look, it doesn't need that much management. Like it's pretty set up. We've got decades of experience. And what he was feeling was being at the tail end of his career. COVID hit. We sold everything in the shop, right? Like, I mean, our rental fleet we had to sell as used bikes, and then 2021 strong, 2022 still pretty strong, 2023 kind of industry wide a cooling off period. People had bought bikes in the beginning of COVID that they would have been buying over the next few years. They was just front loaded. So especially we're right by the Gulf. So we have insurance costs that are going up with hurricanes and labor costs and product costs. So he was seeing the increase of costs going up with kind of the fall off of revenues compared with some of our benchmark years before with the COVID push. So he was looking for a lifeline to get out, and I very politely told him no a few times, and he was able to pull on my heartstrings and the nostalgia of working there as a child. And yeah, I don't want to say the shop would have just closed had I not bought it, but at the same time, we geographically in the city, there's not another shop around us, and so there would have been a giant void in that part of the city. We service everybody from somebody who's probably on the brink of being unhoused to people who are not worried about money at all to very elite racers. So I know that a lot of shops will focus on we're the commuting shop or we're the bike packing shop or we just do the high end road bikes. And it would probably be a little bit easier if we could have a singular focus like that. But man, we service everybody. Like we're truly a neighborhood and a citywide bike shop. So it's tough just to sit here and say we're going to do it a new way now when historically for decades we've operated taking care of all these people. So I feel a duty to the community and especially the riding community locally. Like we have to keep the shop going. We had 8 people working at the shop. Now we have 11. And so it's just, there would be a big void in the city if the shop closed for being a resource for people who ride or getting people riding, and also from an advocacy standpoint. So at that point, I kind of thought about it. We talked numbers. I got permission on the home front, and we moved forward.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real thing to pull at your heartstrings. Like this shop means something to you. It means so much to the community. I mean, you're located right on the bike path. And since you took over, you have made some upgrades, modifications, changes to the interior, to the layout, to the merchandising. You put a second entry off the bike path in the back. So you've made some really nice changes. But it's more than a bike shop, as you describe. It's really in the building. It's like the hub for the local cycling community. If I recall, there was, I think, Bike Easy and maybe some other advocacy groups that were upstairs on the second level, right? It's kind of your vision that the shop will be a store and also a community center, Charlie?
That's absolutely right. Heather, am I able to share my screen?
I think so. Yeah.
Matt, can I pull up a photo just for anybody who's watching this to kind of expand on what you're saying as well?
Yeah, definitely. We'd love that.
Let me see if I can do this. And so the picture I want to show is when we were fortunate enough to have you and several other people from the P2 group in NBDA come down earlier in the year. And we took a picture in front, which I'm very proud of. But for anybody who has not been to our shop, which I'm presuming is most people listening to this, we are on a greenway, which is basically a rails to trails conversion of a 3-mile paved path straight through the heart of New Orleans. So it connects the French Quarter and the river area with really City Park, which is our biggest public park in the city. and we're in a great location. It's very bikeable. And when the path was being paved, 2014, there was some concern with Charlie, who I was buying the shop from, of what's that going to do to people who are coming to the shop, and if we have a rear entrance, will people come in and take things, or how's this all going to work? All right, Heather, here we go. My screen share is loading.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
Is this? Can you see it now?
That's perfect. Yep.
All right, so we're in like this old warehouse, which is super cool. It's built in the 50s. We're on the parking lot side. On the other side is the path that we're talking about. So what we're looking at here, this has always been our front entrance, our main entrance, our only entrance. And so we did open up an entrance on the back side, which has now been in place for a couple of months. And it's amazing how many new people that we're getting just coming off of the Greenway who didn't realize that the back of a bike shop was there. So, Charlie had been in this business for close to 40 years. He didn't want to, come up with all these new things. Like, he's looking for a way out, and I don't blame him. But with me coming in, and I can't take too much credit here, like with our team having new life being breathed into the shop, we're able to make a bunch of changes that really should have happened, if we're going to be the best shop that we're going to be.
Mhm.
So my background here right now at our law firm, but I put up a background of a photo from inside the shop. We have a 1973 BMW that was restored in there, showing off a bike rack. And you can't even see it in this picture, but we've got a bike hanging off the back of it, which is like how much fun. And really, Heather, like, so through bike law, and I'm licensed in Mississippi and Texas and Louisiana and Washington, D.C. I spend a lot of time in Texas. Texas has a lot of people riding, and they have a bunch of bad drivers, which is unfortunately why we get involved. But I've gone to, I don't know how many shops in Texas. My last count, there's around 175 shops across Texas.
Wow.
I'll say I've been to most of them. And, some are really cool. And for anybody who's familiar with this NVDA, what is it, the design? Tell me what the design show is called.
The fixture lab. Oh my God, where am I blanking it? Right. Retail Design Flex. Retail Design Flex.
Design Flex. Oh my gosh, I love, like, if I'm on a bike ride, even though I can't watch my phone, just like letting it play in the background. Is it Brian?
Brian is awesome. He's I just had a major brain moment there, Charlie.
Okay, it's Friday. And so I draw so much inspiration from the NVDA podcast and everything y'all do. And it's fun to like go into a shop now having that knowledge, which makes me just like dangerous enough to do something with. And you go into a shop and it's like, there's carpet, there's a drop ceiling, there's fluorescent lights, uninspiring displays, and you're like, oh, like, all right, I'm gonna do my part here and then keep going. And then you walk into a different space and you're like kind of blown away. And emotionally, you're just like, I want to be here. I want to spend some money here. I want to be a part of what they have going on. This is a really cool place to be. And so obviously, if we've got the ability to change some of that, we want to be a cool place to be.
Well,
So
the photo that you showed, Charlie, it just reminded me that your lighting like welcomes people into your store. So if you're listening to this while you're riding or driving, go to YouTube after, you'll see the video and you can see the picture. But Charlie, your lighting, everyone in the P2 group commented on that. Just it pulled people in. You nailed and your merchandising, but it's extremely powerful.
appreciate that, Heather. And we'd worked really hard before y'all were coming down to revamp the shop. So that's adding music. I mean, we had two speakers way in the corner that were, shooting music across the entire shop. So if you're by the speakers, it's really loud. And if you're, across the shop, it felt, like it was trying too hard. And so it's, speakers everywhere. We had to get rid of our fluorescent lighting and do the spots, again, based on one of the retail Design Flex podcast that y'all had done. And so we really just took a lot of cues from the NVDA podcast on how to set up displays, the shop lighting, the music, the feel when you're walking in. And it was great when we had y'all come through and we had our full analysis, and we still had like, 30 points of what we could do better. You can always, like, if you ever think you've reached it and you've hit it, you can't do better, you got to stop. Like, you can always do a little bit better. And it's just been fun transforming the space with adding a lounge. So, this is not budget breaking stuff. We went to one of the local auction houses and got an old leather Chesterfield couch that has a tear in the seat. It's like, that's fine. That belongs in a bike shop. It still looks really, really good. It's not like falling apart. It's just maybe somebody wouldn't want it in their living room with a little tear. So we have that with all these great cycling books, old Japanese steel frames and Tour de France legends and all that on the coffee table and an espresso machine right there. So it's not a full coffee bar, but our team knows if somebody's coming in, they're looking at a bike, or they just want to hang out for a little minute, just go offer them a coffee. We're not selling it, we're just making it. Come enjoy our space. We've got the projector and the pull down screen, so we'll put the tour on. We've got the little, you can see the string lights above the cycles in this background a little bit. And so we also wanted to add a lot of plants. Our shop name is Bayou Bicycles. We're down in the bayou. It's just very vegetation heavy. And so we've done that. And we just wanted to up our game and make sure everybody knew that we're not getting too fancy. We just want to have a super cool space that's fun to come hang out in.
It's so cool and it's so welcoming and it just gives that feel of like everyone is welcome here and the vibe is positive and you've done a really tremendous job with it, Charlie, and your community. They're lucky to have you and your staff. I've gotten to know several of them very, very close, and they're also just complimentary of what you've brought to the business. So I'm really glad that you did say yes and you did take that leap, even though I know you're wearing a lot of hats right now.
Appreciate that a lot. And if I may just add this too. So upstairs on the second floor of our warehouse, we have some built out office space, which was really our fit studio in years past. And Bike Easy is our local nonprofit bike advocacy group in New Orleans. They were losing their space at the end of last year. They needed a space to go. So we thought, man, it'd be amazing to have them in the same envelope of a building as us. So I've been involved with them for years on their board, and I'm still co-chair of one of their committees. So we brought them upstairs and we have them paying us a nominal amount of rent. It's nothing close to fair market, but they do such good work. They need a space. And there's also the Lafitte Greenway Partnership, which is the name of the path that runs right by our back door. They were in an office where their rent kept going up. So reached out to them and they're upstairs now too. So we've tried to make our building really a hub of advocacy and nice, like-minded people who think, biking can save the world and all of that. So it's so nice to have a built-in community of the Bike Easy people coming downstairs, hanging out. We have a ton of our staff involved with Bike Easy already. So we'll have our Bike Easy meetings at the shop, and it's just really nice that we're all there together. It feels a lot more collegial.
It feels really, and when I was in the building, it felt really natural that those spaces were upstairs and that they're part of what you're doing.
Are you looking to connect with the heart of the bicycle retail industry? Advertise here on the NBDA Bicycle Retail Radio podcast. Each episode brings together specialty retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders for honest discussions on the latest industry issues. With thought-provoking content that features relatable, real-world tips for success, you can reach your target audience where they listen, learn, and grow. Visit nbda.com to get started today.
I guess, Charlie, if I could just, since I have you, ask some retailer advice questions based on your unique background and perspective that you bring. We know that bike shops, they navigate a lot of liability and safety concerns. We know what we mentioned earlier, repairs, but there's also rentals and demos. From your perspective, any thoughts on how bicycle retailers can best protect themselves when it comes to like waivers? Like we're always like asking, or I'm always asking, like, do you have waivers in your workshop? Or even like simple insurance so they can protect themselves but still maintain great operations and customer relationships?
Heather, that's such an important question. And there needs to be some sort of an NBDA summit where, if you'll have me, I'll put together a comprehensive presentation on best practices, how to, do everything you can to shield yourself from liability by really not having it in the first place, insurance considerations. Why don't I answer your question this way for just, this setting? Number one, it's very state by state. So the laws of different states are obviously going to differ depending on insurance requirements, insurance protections, waivers of liability. Certain states you can waive liability, other states you can't. In other areas, you can waive regular negligence, but you can't waive gross negligence, which is kind of like a recklessness or more. So if anybody has specific questions, we've looked at this on the bike law side, we've looked at it on the bike shop side. I'm licensed in multiple jurisdictions, and really, we just want shops to be protected. The best way they can do that is by having proper insurance in place. If there is an incident and there's a claim being brought, an insurance company that's yours has a duty to provide you with a defense. So they need to manage the claim. If there's a suit filed, they need to provide you with an attorney to represent your interests. And then ultimately, if it's a covered claim, they have a responsibility to pay and get you a release and get you out.
Okay.
So that's oversimplifying a lot of it. But if you're a shop and you don't have a CGL policy, which is commercial general liability, you should really look at getting one immediately. I mean, many manufacturers or distributors are going to want you to have that anyways, just in case there's a product defect and a claim's brought. They may even want you to add them, whether it's a QBT or somebody, to your certificate of insurance, so they're also covered too. It wouldn't cost any more. It's just they're also extending from your protection. So insurance in place, let's call it workers' comp as well. There are certain things, and then that starts to extend to, all right, what about for your inventory? Is there going to be a difference between if a windstorm hits, or there's a leak, or a flood happens, or a theft, and what types of exclusions might be in those policies? So, Heather, I've listened to your podcast before where you've had industry experts come in and talk about those things. And it's really interesting to see it from my perspective at the front lines of, being on the litigation side, but also wearing the hat as a shop owner. So if anybody has questions, I would say I'm happy to field those, point you in the right direction. But yes, I mean, it's very, very good if a shop can show we've got a checklist and we follow certain procedures and those are spelled out, not unlike being in a cockpit where you've got a checklist for nearly everything. So you've taken a bike in, you fixed it. Let's make sure that you're sending it out with the seats at the height that it came in at, as opposed to, a much higher height, and it's, leading to a crash because somebody's trying to get on it in a funny way and they didn't realize the seat's much higher. That's just a very specific example, but one of them. And then with rentals, we have come up with a form that we use that we think is very comprehensive. And again, the point's not to just take responsibility off the shop. It's so that there's a clear understanding of, hey, if you're renting a bike from us, we expect you to follow the traffic rules. Know that there are risks out there. And in Louisiana, the simple waiver of risk is not going to just insulate the shop. Like, that's not going to keep us from getting sued. But what it does do is it can show that if you're a shop that has a robust waiver, you've educated the customer on, hey, be aware of these things out there and know that, like, we can't control roadway conditions. So you've got to look out for that. And in my opinion, it's much better to have projected that information on somebody as opposed to somebody saying, well, I never knew any of that. So there's the practical aspect of it as well.
Yeah. I mean, a lot there, but like the simple thing is make sure you have insurance in place. And then I'd say also reach out to your insurance broker. They can also, I think, potentially provide checklists or added security to help them be able to insure you to the greatest extent. But Charlie, thank you. I've taken a note. Charlie, Retailer Summit, best practices. I got you. So I appreciate that. What about when it comes to advocating for their customers or even evaluating the products that they're bringing in when there might be safety concerns? Like e-bikes would be like something that comes straight to my mind. Is there um, certain onus that's put on the shop, or is there a way that the shop owner can best make these decisions for their customer? Or is there anything they have to do there, really? I don't know.
So with the last question, I appreciate you repackaging my answer if I'm going too far and wide. But with this one, I would say, obviously be aware of where your products are coming from and look out for them. If somebody's coming back to you saying, hey, this failed, put all antenna up and start to try and see why. Let the manufacturer or the distributor know, and reconsider maybe carrying those items. I'll say current day, it's e-bikes and the battery liability. And I've learned so much through the MBDA programs about how do you safely store this. If somebody's bringing their e-bike to you, should you hand them the battery back and say, this needs to go home with you. We just have a policy of not storing these in our shop. So it's yours. We'll have your bike ready whenever. Correct?
Yes, yeah, I love it. Yep, it's easy.
So I would say that, you know, I, I I think from an overall standpoint, I'm very proud of the bike industry for having safe products.
Mhm.
And it's amazing to see even smaller component manufacturers and the testing that they do, whether it's a US based company, Chris King or Paul or somebody like that, where they're CNC machining their parts here and anodizing them and they're testing them to failure. Have you ever seen the factory tour of Nitto in Japan
Oh,
and what they do to test their bars?
and I have to. I haven't seen it, no.
Unbelievable. So, and there are brands whose quality speaks for themselves, and it comes with decades of testing and experience learned. And just trying to stay with some of those, I think, is probably most helpful. But at the same time, like just have a heightened awareness if anything seems like it's going wrong, so that you can address it and make sure it's not going to happen again.
Yeah. Some common sense. I like how you're just sending those batteries home. Just there you go. Good policy. Um, all right, a little bit on a more sympathetic, I guess, tone. Like we know that sometimes local riders get in an accident, and I think it's a tough moment for the bike shop. They can become the place of support. So maybe the customer who got in the accident has to comes in with the bike, and the retailer has to like assess the bike damage and help with that insurance claim. Uh, from your perspective, like any thoughts on how retailers can best support riders facing these challenges? I mean, I remember being asked by someone in an accident if I could make the repair bill much higher than it was needed to be so they could get a new bike. And I'm like, you're one of my favorite customers. I'm in a really weird position right now. So just any advice on how to navigate these?
Let's, first things first. If somebody's and Heather, if you don't mind, I'm going to say crash
Yeah,
rather than accident,
thank you. Yeah.
my advocacy hat. And for anybody who's unfamiliar with that terminology, accident kind of makes it sound like it was not preventable. It was going to happen regardless of anything. And you throw your hands up like a toddler spilling milk saying it was an accident. And how we approach a traffic crash involving somebody on a bike is the rules of the road. The traffic laws are really good. They've been around for close to 100 years. We've added a few since, don't drink and drive and don't text and drive. But if everybody follows those laws, Heather, we wouldn't have one more crash. Look through your windshield, pay attention to what's around you, stop at the red light, stop at a stop sign, leave a proper distance from people in front of you or to the side of you. So we look at it like, hey, somebody's not doing their job if it's a crash. And we have the benefit of being able to turn down a case. So where if we feel there's way too much fault on the person riding the bike, which I don't like to see, but it's a reality sometimes, we don't have to take that case. But in all the other cases, there's going to be culpability on the driver. So bikes are designed to be ridden hard, ridden uphill, ridden downhill, braked, but they're not really designed to be hit by a very heavy vehicle. 2,000 pounds, 3,000 pounds, 6,000 pounds. They're just not designed to take those forces. And anybody in the industry knows, well, a steel bike's probably going to hold up better than a carbon fiber bike or even an aluminum bike, which just the steel has a lot more resiliency. So when you start getting into lighter frames or higher end components, it's our recommendation that the bike needs to be replaced because even if there's not a lot of visible damage to a frame, I wouldn't want one of my clients or customers going on a big descent and all of a sudden their carbon frame starting to come apart on them. And I mean, like Heather, I still remember probably in the late 90s to 2000 era, I was on Bianchi's lightest ever aluminum frame. I think it was like the EV4 or something. And I was in a race. It was a multi-day race. I was sitting like in third place, like on the road. I was so excited. And all of a sudden my frame just started getting like kind of squishy. And it was like, do I have yeah, I'm checking my tires. It felt like one was going flat. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was just getting like kind of noodly. And the next thing I know, on the down tube, right behind the weld to the head tube, the down tube just rips.
Oh,
Literally, the metal rips. I've got a picture of it up in the shop.
no.
And the top tube somehow held it together, and I was able to pull out of the pack. You know, we were going like 30 and like land the bike without crashing, but at the same time, it was so crazy to see that. So that moment will live with me forever because had I been going 50 or 60 on a descent, it could have been really, really ugly. So it's not like you crash on your bike and let's say it's something a little bit nicer and there's a there's a bicycle blue book, but it's not like cars. It's not like where this Toyota Camry from 2023 with 15,000 miles is kind of the same value as the one that just got crashed. With bikes, we don't like when an insurance company would try and depreciate them because let's say you've got your bike, it's nicer, but a couple of years older, are you supposed to go find the same exact version of your bike and you have no idea what its history is? Had the person before you crashed it, maybe that's why they're selling it. Like it's just really hard to read into. Is there some stress that's been applied there that you don't know about? And at what expense or what cost if it's going to, shake itself out when you're in a pretty vulnerable spot? So typically, if we're asking an insurance adjuster to pay for a new bike for, again, like one of our clients or a customer, we're telling them they should not depreciate it. If it cost $3,000 3 years ago, they really need to pay $3,000 now so the person can go replace it with a like kind of quality bike.
Yeah.
We like to work with other shops. So if I've got my bike law hat on and we're representing somebody who was hit, I'm not just bringing them into my shop saying, we'll replace your bike. I'm keeping the relationship intact with their go-to shop because we try and project as much good advocacy as we can to all the shops. Like I love being friends with all the shops, even our local shops. We're friends with our competition. It's
Yeah.
just the way that we are. And we're going to be the best shop that we can be, but I want all IBDs to be doing well and people to be coming to us as opposed to going online to somebody they don't really know about, or again, to like a big box retailer who's not going to be servicing them as well and as focused as an IBD. So with the being put in the weird position of the customers asked me to write the estimate up higher than maybe I should, I would say, don't do that. But at the same time, I would not just jump to, oh, the bike is X amount of years old and it should be depreciated. So if it's halfway through its life, let's cut the depreciation down. Not at all. Like the person who was riding the bike was not asking for this crash to happen. They knew their bike. And it would be very unfair to ask them to take a small amount of money for what their bike was new and replace it with something that they don't know the backstory on.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, there's a lot there, right? But I guess this is why we need to have you come out to the summit and give us like the legal best practices. I'm sure there's so many questions I'm not even asking you, right? That are things that you come across or would think to advise retailers of.
Well, and let me offer this too. We have some pretty great property damage reports that are templates. So if I'm going to send that to another shop, like I don't want Joe the mechanic at some shop in Houston, Texas, hearing, oh, I've got to write a crash replacement report. And he's thinking it's going to take me hours to put pen to paper. Like, no, there's kind of a lot of fill in the blank. Like, depending on, is it a steel frame, titanium, carbon, what kind of wheels, what kind of impact was it in, things like that. And then putting in there, not just the bike, but you need to get a new helmet. If your
Yeah, that's
shoes
other.
are scuffed up, your cell phone's cracked, like all that goes in there. So we, like, as attorneys, we don't take a fee on that. If it's an injury case, we'll earn a fee only if we're getting money from an insurance company. People aren't paying us upfront or hourly. But for the property damage side, that's just part of what we do. So if we're able to get, X amount of money for somebody's property damage, that X amount of money all goes to the client, and then they can go rebuy what they want to buy. So it's very important to us, especially because, Heather, emotionally, there might be somebody who's laid up, they've been in the hospital, they're home, they're healing from a fracture, and they're not getting on a bike for like the next few months. But if they're able to replace their bike and get a new bike and it's just sitting in their living room, oh my gosh. Like, and at first I was kind of like, that's kind of weird. Like, you want a new bike and you can't ride it yet. But now, after doing this for 20 years, seeing people's joy. I mean, new bike day is a great day, right?
New bike day is
New bike
absolutely
day.
beautiful. And then when new bike comes in your like house and you can look at it before, like it's beautiful and inspiring. It's
And it's inspiring. They want to get better so they can go ride it.
so unfortunate these crashes happen, Charlie, and like we could spend hours. I know that they're actually probably happening more often than we're even aware of, and it's disheartening. We need safe places to ride. We need drivers who are not distracted. Um, I think that would do so much for our industry if we could advocate for safe places to ride. And
we we need good infrastructure, and there's an education component because, let's not kid ourselves, there's an anti-bike bias that's
Mhm.
out there. If I'm going to pick a jury and I ask, hey, who here doesn't like people riding bikes on the roads, it's like most of the hands coming up, which is great. I mean, I appreciate them being honest with me so I can go, you're excused. But at the same time, it's also like, this isn't really the sentiment that we want out there. At Bike Law, we keep saying we're trying to put ourselves out of business. We want to be great advocates. I want to be able to ride safely. I want my kids to be able to ride safely, my friends, and all of our shop customers, so that we can just enjoy life riding around without the fear of somebody on a cell phone coming up behind us.
Yeah. Um, Charlie, thanks for coming on the podcast. I have one more question before we wrap up because I know we're at time pretty much. Is there a lesson from your legal career that has been surprisingly useful in running the bike shop? I mean, outside of like liability that we talked about, maybe there's a crossover, but is there anything that you would share?
Can I spin that question around, Heather?
Yeah, you can
And
do whatever
just
you want.
say part of why I was excited to come into the shop and keep it going. So right now, my daughters are 12 and 10, and then my little guy is about to be 3. And just, watching kids grow up, and I know you've got yours. It's amazing to see, number one, how you blink and just time flies by. But number two, I'm putting myself back in the bike shop, my teenage mentality. And yeah, it was scary. Like, I'm now working there. I've changed a flat, I've got a drivetrain cleaned, but now I need to go help a customer and maybe sell them a bike. And so let's say I'm 14 at the time, and this is a grown up. Like, are they going to even take me seriously? Are they going to want to talk to me? And so going up and helping people in an industry that I was passionate about and knew, and I could probably read off any of the specs on that bike without looking at the brochure. And so being able to engage with people and then play that out a few hundred times and over several years. And it turned out I love talking to people. So that launched my legal career in the sense of, you've got 40 people coming in as prospective jurors, and you have to talk to each one of them individually and as a group pretty efficiently. You can't just sit there and take days to do it. You've got to cover ground very quickly, or your judge is going to be displeased. So I would say taking my experience working in the shop, and then, that's carried me through my law practice. And I want the same opportunity for my kids or any other little teenagers out there trying to find some confidence, to where they're going to get some good skills as to accountability in the shop, working with other people, being a lead, a salesperson, but you're just helping somebody, and basically being a mini consultant with whatever their issue is. So we don't want to have just a bunch of child labor, but I would think that somebody who's younger working in a shop, just getting that real world experience and those skills, that's going to take them into any other industry or profession that they're going to get into. So I cherish those moments, and I'm so thankful to the shop that it was there for me. I love being there for it to continue it for hopefully the next 40 years and just be a good steward of it. Who knows who's going to take it next? But I appreciate your question, and I just wanted to flip it and say, me working at the bike shop when I was young has opened so many doors into everything else, and it's just funny that the path took me right back there.
It is funny where our life takes us. I absolutely think that you're just such an amazing human, Charlie. Thank you for coming on the show. Um,
Yes.
we
Thanks for
barely can skim the surface of the background on you, the background on Bayou Bicycles, some bike law background, some retailer advice. I'm sure our listeners might have more questions for you. We're going to link to your website for the store. We'll link to the bike law website. But is there another contact that you might feel comfortable sharing with our listeners?
My email is great. It's Charlie, CHARLIE, at bikelaw.com. Bike law is one word. And Heather, if anybody's considering wanting to take a trip to New Orleans,
Oh, yeah.
I have to tell them they can hear me, but reach out. We'll set you up with a bike. Just come enjoy our city. And best not to come between June and August. It's real hot, but other parts of the year, we've got super mild winters and beautiful falls and springs. But just reach out. We'd love to take care of you if you're coming to the area. We've got some great merch at our shop too, but just give us a heads up that you're coming, and we'll roll the carpet out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Charlie, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you.
Heather.
Thank you for tuning into Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please like, subscribe, or leave us a review. Sharing this podcast with your friends helps us reach more listeners and continue to bring you the best content. Remember, we host 2 shows per week with ever-changing guests and fresh content to keep you both informed and inspired. The National Bicycle Dealer Association is committed to providing valuable events, webinars, and opportunities for industry education and connection. Stay up to date by visiting nbda.com to see our event calendar. Special thanks to Francis Abbott for the promotional graphics for today's episode. If you're interested in advertising on Bicycle Retail Radio or have a guest suggestion, visit nbda.com to learn more. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Bicycle Retail Radio.